Asela, traveling with her master's caravan nearby, hears the clash. Despite being a slave girl, her combat instincts override protocol. She engages 12 assassins using a hybrid fighting style, Korean sword techniques fused with Ethiopian wrestling grips. She kills 7, disables 4, and takes an arrow meant for the prince. Bleeding by the riverbank, Asela refuses to kneel. "You are a prince," she says. "I am a sword. Swords do not bow, they cut." She was a slave, bought for silver, trained to kill. 7 men dead, 4 crippled, 1 arrow in her shoulder that she took without flinching. He looked at her, the foreign girl with amber eyes and warrior braids, and saw not property, but possibility. From that river of death rose a love that would shatter an empire, a slave who became queen, a prince who chose her over his throne. Together they will fight their kingdom to end slavery. But how will a slave and a prince accomplish such an ambition? Like, subscribe, hit the bell. Your next obsession drops soon. Now enjoy the full epic.
The autumn rains had turned the Amnok River into a gray serpent, swollen with mud from the northern mountains. Along the trade road that followed its curve, a merchant caravan moved with cautious pace. They traveled under the banner of retired Commander Osu, though the man himself had not left his estate near Wando in 3 years. Behind the steward rode the wagons, silk, ginseng, iron, and the slaves. There were 12 in the coffle. Most were war captives from the southern kingdoms. But one walked apart, her wrists scarred from bronze chains she wore as if they were a choice. She was 17, perhaps 18, the years since her capture at age 7 had blurred. Her skin was the color of fertile earth after rain, her hair worked into warrior braids incorporating Korean hairpins she had collected over a decade. Her eyes were amber, and they did not lower when the steward glanced back. Her name had been Makeda. Her master called her Asela. She answered to it, but she did not claim it. The caravan halted at the river's edge. The steward argued with a ferryman. Asela sat on a stone and sharpened her knife, a small blade she was permitted for eating and, as Osu understood, for survival. She had killed with it before a foreman who mistook her foreignness for consent. The commander had promoted her to his son's sparring partner instead of punishing her. She could break a man's arm in 3 places before he felt the first crack. The sound came from upstream. Metal on metal, the ring of Goguryeo steel, followed by the scream of a horse. Asela walked to the river's edge. 6 riders were pinned against the bank where the road narrowed between water and black pines. The attackers wore rough clothing, but their coordination was too precise, their weapons too uniform. She counted 12, then 15. The defenders were down to 3. The central figure fought without a helmet, his sword work textbook perfect, but he was fighting 3 men while trying to control a panicked horse. An arrow took the horse in the neck. The young man rolled clear, killed the first bandit to reach him, but there were 2 more behind, and the archers were adjusting their aim. The steward had heard the combat now. Asela watched him calculate the odds, the cost of intervention, the preservation of cargo. She saw him decide to wait. She was already moving. Her chains allowed a running stride. She had practiced this. She hit the first bandit from behind, looping her chain over his head and snapping his neck with a twist of her hips, a technique learned from a Persian slave who had fought in Roman arenas. She took his sword, threw it into the brush where an archer crouched. The archer stood reflexively. The young swordsman threw his dagger. The archer fell. Then they were fighting back to back. She had never partnered in combat before, yet his movements made space for hers. When he pivoted left, she knew his blade would guard high, leaving low for her. They did not speak. The fighting had its own grammar. She killed 7. She disabled 4 more, breaking joints with techniques refined from ancient texts. The last bandit fled. She would have pursued, but an arrow took her in the shoulder from a hidden bowman, and the world went white. She woke with her back against the riverbank, the young man's face above hers. He had bound the wound with silk torn from his underrobe. His eyes were gray-green, the color of the Amnok in summer, and they held an expression she had never seen directed at her, not ownership, not appraisal, but something adjacent to concern. "You are a prince," she said. Her voice was rough from disuse. "I am a sword. Swords do not bow, they cut." He laughed, a startled sound. "You saved my life. 12 assassins. I counted. Scylla assassins. Not bandits. Their boots are too new. They move in formation." She coughed blood. The arrow had pierced deep. "You should go. More will come." He lifted her in his arms. She was tall, heavy with muscle, but he was stronger than he appeared. "You are not dying today. Not for me." He carried her to his convoy. 2 guards still lived, both wounded. "Flag down the merchant caravan," he ordered. "I am buying their slave." The steward arrived 10 minutes later, his face pale with the realization of what he had failed to prevent. He began to apologize, to explain. Prince Yunyu cut him off. "Name your price for this woman." "Full manumission papers, backdated, signed, and witnessed. I want her past burned and her future unwritten." "Your Highness, she is a foreigner, Name your price." 40 ingots. "But the commander values her." 80 ingots. Double her value. Paid publicly in Wando, with witnesses from every clan and temple. Explain to your master that his investment has returned multiplied, or explain to the king why his slave knew more of court politics than his ministers. The steward understood. They carried her to Wando on a litter. The prince walked beside her, never more than an arm's length away. When fever took her, she woke to find his hand on her forehead, his voice reciting poetry, the classic of poetry, because he did not know how to pray and could not bear silence. The monks extracted the arrow, cauterized the wound, dosed her with willow bark. She woke 3 days later in a room smelling of cedar, wearing clothes not her own. A servant sat in the corner. "Where's the prince?" "The market. He is buying you." The absurdity of it, buying what he already possessed, would have made her laugh if she had the strength. "He should have let me die." The prince does not let things die. He collects strays, wounded things. You are his first person. The market at Wando required public record for major transactions. Yunyu conducted her purchase in the central square, beneath the bronze bell. He wore formal court dress, his hair bound in the adult topknot he usually eschewed. He had brought monks, generals, the magistrate, a royal scribe. Hei Emosu's son accepted the gold with frozen expression. Yunyu paid 120 gold ingots. Triple her value. More than a villa, more than a province's annual tribute. He paid for backdated manumission, creating a fiction that she had never been enslaved, that she was a free woman of foreign birth with no legal connection to the man who had just purchased her non-existence as property. "He has made you a ghost," said the servant, Chunhua. "Like himself." They moved to the capital 3 weeks later. The prince provided a horse and rode beside her with the patience of a man who had nowhere else to be. They did not speak much. He watched her as she had once watched the commander's sons, assessing strengths, calculating how to turn her capabilities to his purposes. But there was something else in his observation. He looked at her as if she were a puzzle he needed to solve, not for advantage, but for its own sake. The capital was not a single city, but a constellation of fortresses spread across the plains where the Taidong River met its tributaries. They entered through the western gate, reserved for military traffic, passing checkpoints with the weary patience of ritual. At the final gate, guards recognized the prince and knelt, but their eyes moved to Asela with the quick assessment of men who knew information was currency. A foreign woman, armed, riding beside the ghost prince without subservience. They would report this. The prince's residence was a compound within the greater palace, 3 buildings around a wild garden. He dismounted, turned to help her down. She ignored his hand, dropping to the ground with a jar that sent pain through her healing shoulder. "The main building is mine. You will have the western pavilion. Its own entrance, servants, kitchen. You need not see me unless summoned, or you have need to report. I am your guard, not your guest. You are whatever you choose to be." That is what I bought. Not your service. Your choice. She stared at him. You bought the absence of law, not choice. I have no clan, no family, no trade, but violence. I can only be what you need. Then be what I need. For now, when you understand what you want, tell me. I collect impossible things. Perhaps I can find a way to give you that too. He left her at the pavilion door. Chunhwa waited inside, with clothes and oils and the instruments of court grooming. Asela submitted because resistance required energy she did not have, and because she was curious. The mirror showed her a stranger, thinner than she remembered, cheekbones prominent, eyes haunted. The braids had been redone with silver pins. Her skin, scrubbed and oiled, seemed to glow, making the white silk a frame rather than covering. She looked like a noblewoman, like someone who belonged. You are beautiful, Chunhwa said. It was a warning. I am visible. That is different. And dangerous. Yes, the prince has made you visible. That is his power, your vulnerability. Until you give them a story they understand, you will be a target. What story do they need? They need to know your place. You have none. Foreign, but not envoy. Free, but not noble. Armed, but not soldier. Companion to the prince, but not concubine. You are a question mark in a world that runs on periods. The first test came that evening. The prince sent summons to the training yard. She found him in practice clothes, wooden sword in hand, working through forms she recognized. You need to learn court sword. What you know is battlefield. I need you to fight in confined spaces, to control without killing unless necessary. I know how not to kill. You know how to disable. I need you to threaten, to intimidate. He tossed her a wooden blade. Attack me. She did. She came in low, aiming for his knees. He parried with his empty hand, redirecting her force and stepping inside her guard. She felt his hip against hers, his hand on her wrist, and then she was on the ground with his knee on her chest and wood at her throat. Again. They worked for an hour. He was patient, precise. He showed her how to use confined space, how to fight with her back to a wall, how to use momentum without requiring strength to stop it. He showed her Goguryeo court style, emphasizing control. She showed him Ethiopian techniques she remembered from childhood, the wrestling grips that had returned in dreams. You learned this as a child? From my mother. In Aksum, women fight. The words surprised her. She had not spoken of her mother in years. I was 7. I remember her hands, the way she braided my hair. Each braid is a prayer. I do not remember the prayers. The prince was silent. Then, my mother died when I was 10. Plague. I remember her hands too. The way she played the Giamungo. He stood, offered his hand. She took it. We will practice again tomorrow. Until you are comfortable in these clothes, this space, these rules. And then we find what you are capable of. What I am capable of, with you beside me. She slept that night on a bed softer than any she had known, and dreamed of the Amnok River. In the dream it was clear, and her mother stood on the far bank, calling a name that was not Asela. She woke with the name on her lips. Makeda, little lion. She had not been Makeda since she was 7. The days established rhythm. Mornings with Chunhwa, learning court etiquette, how to bow, how to eat without showing hunger, how to stand without showing fatigue. The language of fans and sleeves, communicating status without direct speech. She learned it as she had learned combat, through repetition, understanding these two were weapons. Afternoons with the prince, training or riding or walking the city incognito. He taught her the geography of power, which temples held which alliances, which families controlled trade, which generals were loyal to whom. He spoke of the coming war with Sui China as inevitable. He spoke of his brothers, the heir, competent but cautious, the second, brilliant but cruel, the third, a scholar forced toward contention. And you, she asked, as they walked the market disguised as merchants. What do you want? To survive. For my kingdom to survive. Beyond that. He examined a dagger at an ironwork stall. To matter. Not as king, I have no ambition for the throne, but to leave some mark that persists. You are young to think of legacy. I am 26. My mother died at 32. The plague takes the young. I have no guarantee of years. He set down the dagger, looked at her directly. You understand this. You have lived with death since 7. You do not assume tomorrow. She did not answer. They walked through streets smelling of fish and charcoal, past temples where monks chanted and shrines where shamans danced. She was beginning to love this place. She realized not as home, but as landscape of possibility. The mountains, the rivers, the fortresses, they spoke of a people who had fought for existence against larger neighbors, a culture of resilience that felt familiar. Ethiopia, too, had been a fortress kingdom. That night, she asked Chunwa about court religion, Buddhism, shamanism, Confucianism. Then, in the privacy of her pavilion, she tried to pray. The words came in Guizi, the liturgical language learned from a Coptic slave. She did not know if God could hear prayers so far from the churches of her birth. But she spoke them anyway and felt something loosen in her chest, some knot of held breath beginning to release. She was not Asela. She had never been Asela. She was Makeda, little lion, daughter of warriors. The prince found her in the training yard before dawn, working through his forms with her own techniques blended in. He watched from darkness, then stepped forward to join her. They moved together, wooden swords tracing patterns that might have been combat or dance, until the sun rose and the day began with its demands. You are improving, he said. I am adapting. It is what I do. Then adapt to this. He withdrew a document sealed with royal wax. Your manumission, formally registered. You are now Makeda of Aksum, free woman of Goguryeo, entitled to property, suit in court, marriage, children who will be citizens. The past is burned, the future unwritten. She took it with steady hands. How did you know? You spoke it. In the fever after the river. Your mother's name for you. He smiled, that surprised expression transforming his face. Makeda, little lion. I will call you so, if you permit. In private. Until you are ready for others to know. She looked at him, the prince who had bought her freedom, learned her name from delirium, who offered partnership rather than possession. She thought of the river, the arrow, the way he had carried her from death. She thought of her mother, the prayers finally spoken, the loosening in her chest that might become hope. Yes, she said. Call me Makeda. And I will call you Yanyu. Not prince. Not master. Yanyu. He bowed, the full formal bow of equal to equal. When he rose, his eyes were bright. Then we begin. Makeda and Yanyu. Two ghosts learning to be solid. Whatever comes, we face it together. She did not yet believe him. She had been betrayed too many times to believe in promises made at dawn. But she wanted to believe. And perhaps that wanting was the first step towards something she had not allowed herself to name. For now, she took the document and his hand and followed him into the palace to begin learning what she was capable of and what they might become together. The winter hunt began as political theater. King Yanjiang had declared the annual expedition into the western mountains an occasion to display royal unity, and so the princes rode together beneath the dragon banner, their rivalries temporarily sheathed like the ceremonial swords they wore. Makeda traveled as Yanyu's shadow, disguised in the leather armor and cropped hair of a male guard, her amber eyes hidden behind a soldier's brimmed hat. She had spent 3 months learning to move like a man, wider stance, heavier tread, the suppression of grace in favor of utility. Chunwa had bound her breasts with linen strips that made breathing shallow. The discomfort was familiar. She had learned long ago that survival often required the body to become something it was not. The court had not accepted her. They had absorbed her, the way a fortress absorbs a blow, yielding at the point of impact while maintaining structure elsewhere. The official story, carefully cultivated by Yanyu's allies, presented her as a foreign mercenary whose life debt to the prince had been paid through manumission and military service. The truth of the riverbank, the gold, the backdated freedom, these were known only to those who had been present, and they had been bought or threatened into silence. Yet silence was not ignorance. The nobles watched her with predatory patience, waiting for her to stumble, to reveal the weakness that would allow them to strip away Yu's protection and expose what she truly was. She did not stumble. She became necessary. In the months since her arrival, she had transformed from student to sentinel. She slept across Yu's chamber threshold, a sword's length from his door, rising before dawn to inspect his food and water for poison, accompanying him to meetings where her presence, silent, armed, visibly foreign, served as a reminder that he operated outside normal protocols. The military faction had begun calling her the Shadow openly, with a mixture of respect and unease. She was not the first bodyguard to serve a prince, but she was the first who could not be explained by genealogy or debt, the first whose loyalty seemed to emerge from something other than obligation or fear. Yu had not touched her. This fact circulated through the court with the persistence of rumor, parsed for significance. A prince who purchased a foreign woman's freedom, installed her in his residence, trained with her daily, and did not take her to bed. This was incomprehensible. The explanations multiplied. She was a eunuch in disguise, a witch who had bound his desires, a pawn in some incomprehensible strategy. Makeda heard them and said nothing. The truth was simpler and more dangerous. They were becoming something to each other that had no name in the court's vocabulary. Not master and servant. Not lovers. Not friends, exactly, though she had never had a friend and could not be certain. Partners, perhaps. Or witnesses, each the only person who saw the other clearly. The hunting party made camp in a valley where two streams converged, their waters still free of ice though the air carried the promise of snow. The king's pavilion occupied the center, surrounded by those of his sons in order of precedence. Yunus was smallest, positioned where the valley narrowed toward the mountain passes. He had chosen it deliberately, explaining to Makeda that escape routes mattered more than display. She had noted the exits herself, the stream's frozen shallows, the deer trail climbing the ridge, the hollow where weapons could be cached. She noted too how his brother's pavilions formed a semicircle around his, how the guards they had brought outnumbered his by 4 to 1. "They are measuring you," she said, as they prepared for the first day's hunt. She was helping him with his armor, the intimate task of buckling straps that court protocol would normally assign to servants. But they had established their own protocols, their own boundaries of touch and trust. "They have been measuring me since birth." He flexed his shoulders, testing the fit. "I am the 4th son. My existence is mathematically inconvenient. Remove me and the succession simplifies. Keep me and I am a variable in every equation. You are more than variable. You are threat. The military faction talks of you. The young officers, the veterans of the northern garrisons, they speak your name with hope." She kept her voice low, though the pavilion walls were thick. "Your brothers hear this. They hear what they fear. I have no ambition for the throne. Ambition is not required. Potential is sufficient." She stepped back, assessed her work. "Today, stay close to the king. Let them see you as dutiful son, not rival." He smiled. "You are becoming political. I am becoming survivalist. There is difference." The hunt began at dawn. The king rode at the head, his bearers carrying the royal bow, a weapon of lacquered horn and sinew that only he was permitted to draw. The princes fanned out in prescribed formation, their guards maintaining respectful distances. Makeda stayed 3 paces behind Yu, her hand never far from her sword, her eyes moving constantly across the terrain. The forest here was old growth, oak and pine mixed with the white-barked birch that gave the mountains their name. Snow lay in patches where the sun never reached. The air smelled of resin and cold stone. They had been riding 2 hours when they found the tracks. A bear, large male by the spacing, moving up the valley toward the ridgeline. The king called the princes together, proposing the traditional contest. The son who brought down the bear would earn the honor of the first cup at the evening feast. It was a test, Makeda understood. The bear was dangerous, but more dangerous was the opportunity it presented. An accident in the hunt was easily arranged. A stray arrow, a startled horse, a fall from a cliff. Yu accepted the challenge with the proper show of filial enthusiasm. His brothers did the same. But as they separated to pursue the bear from different angles, she saw the second son, Go Sung-yun, murmur something to his guard captain. The captain nodded, and 2 riders peeled away from his party, taking a trail that would intersect Yun Yu's route. She touched Yun Yu's arm, pointed. He saw, and his expression did not change, but his hand found hers for a moment, a pressure that conveyed everything necessary. They rode on, following the bear's trail into thicker forest where the snow lay deeper and the horses struggled. The 2 riders did not appear, but she knew they were there, shadowing from higher ground. The bear had bedded down in a hollow beneath an uprooted oak, its brown fur invisible against the dead leaves until it rose at their approach. It was larger than she had expected, a mountain bear fattened for winter, its shoulders rising above a horse's withers. Yun Yu's horse screamed and reared. He controlled it, barely, drawing his bow and releasing in one motion. The arrow struck the bear's shoulder, a wound that would heal or kill slowly, but did not stop its charge. Makeda was already moving. She had no bow, her disguise did not permit one. She had only her sword and the techniques she had learned in 2 worlds. She hit the bear from the side, not frontal, using her horse's momentum to carry her close enough to strike behind the foreleg, seeking the heart. The blade skated off bone. The bear turned, impossibly fast, and its paw caught her horse's neck. The animal went down. She rolled clear, came up in snow that soaked through her clothes, and found the bear facing her, blood streaming from its shoulder, eyes small and furious. She did not think. She charged. The Ethiopian wrestling came back to her, not learned, but remembered, her mother's voice guiding her hands. She went low, inside the bear's reach, and struck upward with the sword hilt, not blade, driving into the soft tissue beneath the jaw. The bear's head snapped back. She dropped the sword, grabbed its forelegs, and twisted, using her whole body as leverage, her hip as fulcrum. The bear's own weight worked against it. She felt the shoulders separate, the massive body begin to fall, and then she was on its back, her arms around its neck, pulling backward with all the strength Hei Emosu's training had built, until something cracked and the bear went limp beneath her. She lay in the snow, covered in blood that was mostly not hers, and felt the pain arrive. The bear's claws had opened her back during the struggle, for parallel gashes from shoulder to waist. She could feel the cold air on exposed muscle. She could feel the blood pooling beneath her. She thought, with strange clarity, that she had finally done something her mother might have seen, and the thought was comfort enough to let the darkness take her. Yun Yu found her there, the dead bear beside her, his guards arriving too late to have helped. He carried her to a hunting lodge 2 miles distant, a rough structure used by foresters in summer. The guards wanted to return to camp, to summon physicians, to report the prince's survival to the king. He refused. He sent them to secure the perimeter, to find the 2 riders who had shadowed them, to do anything that would leave him alone with her. The wounds were beyond his skill. He cleaned them as best he could, packed them with snow to slow the bleeding, and held her as the fever took hold. She spoke in the delirium, languages he did not recognize, Guizi, he would later learn, and fragments of the Turkic she had picked up on the Silk Road, and Korean mixed with both until meaning dissolved into pure sound. He caught only fragments. Her mother's name. A word that might have been lion. And finally, clearly, her own name spoken with desperate intensity, Makeda. I am Makeda. Not Asela. Makeda. I know, he told her, though she could not hear. I know who you are. She woke 3 days later. The fever had broken. The wounds had begun to close, though she would carry the scars forever, for pale ridges across her dark skin that Chunhua would later anoint with oils and praise as marks of honor. Yun Yu sat beside the rough bed, unshaven, his court clothes ruined, his eyes hollow with exhaustion. You killed a bear, he said. With your hands. I remembered how. Her voice was ruin. My mother. She taught me. Before the slavers came. He took her hand. She let him. The 2 riders. My brother's men. They were found on the ridge, arrows in their throats. Not my doing. Someone else is playing this game. Your other brothers, or my father, or the Scylla spies who have undoubtedly infiltrated the hunt. Everyone is playing, Makeda. Everyone but us. He laughed, a broken sound. I thought I was being clever, collecting you. A foreign guard, politically neutral, personally loyal. But I have made you a piece in the game. I have made you visible to everyone who wants to hurt me. I was always visible. Slave markets are visible. She squeezed his hand, surprised to find she had strength for it. Difference is, now I have sword. Now I have name. Now I have you calling me by it. He looked at her then, really looked, and she saw something shift in his face, the final dissolution of a boundary he had maintained through will and fear. Makeda, he said, little lion, I am going to fail you. I am a prince without power, a son without father's love, a man without clear path. I can give you freedom, but not safety. Position, but not acceptance. Myself, but... Stop. She pulled him closer, ignoring the pain in her back. You do not give me these things. I take them, or I do not. Freedom I have. Safety I make. Acceptance, she shrugged, the gesture sending fire through her wounds. I do not need. You think you collected me. Wounded thing, stray. But I am not your collection. I am your choice. And you are mine. She kissed him. It was not gentle. It was the culmination of months of proximity without contact, of watching and wanting and refusing to name the wanting. It was her teeth against his lip, her hand in his hair, her body arching against his despite the pain. When they finally separated, both breathing hard, he was laughing again, that surprised sound she had first heard on the riverbank. We cannot, he said. The court. The scandal. Your position. My position is shadow. Shadows do what light cannot. She pulled him down beside her on the narrow bed, wincing as her wounds pressed against the rough blanket. We will be careful. We will be secret. But we will be. I have spent 10 years being what others needed. I will spend what remains being what I choose. And I choose this. I choose you. They stayed in the hunting lodge 5 days, until she could walk without fainting. Yun Yu sent messages to the king claiming injury, his own, a fall from his horse, and declining the remainder of the hunt. The bear's pelt was delivered to the royal pavilion with the prince's compliments, the traditional trophy that acknowledged his victory without requiring his presence. The king sent a physician who examined Yun Yu's bruises and Makeda's disguised form and departed with suspicious eyes, but no proof. They returned to the capital as the first heavy snow fell and the city transformed. The palace withdrew into itself, fires burning constantly in the braziers, the courtyards empty except for servants hurrying on necessary errands. It was a season of confinement, of enforced intimacy, of plots hatched in overheated rooms while the world outside lay frozen. Makeda moved back into the Western Pavilion formally, but spent her nights in Yun Yu's chambers, their relationship concealed by the same discipline that had hidden her gender during the hunt. Chunhua knew. A few trusted servants knew. The rest of the court suspected, as they had suspected from the beginning, but suspicion without proof was merely atmosphere. The crisis came with the spring thaw. King Yanjiang announced Prince Go Huaiyul's betrothal to a daughter of the Jairuba clan, the powerful northern aristocracy whose military support would be essential in the coming war with Sui China. The wedding was set for the summer solstice. Simultaneously, the king commanded his other sons to take wives of appropriate rank, consolidating alliances before the campaign season began. Yun Yu was ordered to marry a woman of the He clan, distant relatives of his former master, the connection calculated to humiliate him by reminding the court of his association with a slave merchant. He received the command in open court, kneeling before his father's throne, and accepted it with the appearance of gratitude. Makeda watched from her station near the door, her face the mask she had perfected, her heart a stone in her chest. They had discussed this possibility, in the darkness of his chambers, in the honesty that existed only when they were alone. They had known it would come. Knowing did not prevent the pain. That night, they did not touch. They sat across from each other in the main pavilion, the brazier burning low between them, and spoke of practicalities. The Hay woman is 16, Yunyu said. Reportedly pious, poorly educated, terrified of court life. I will treat her with courtesy. I will give her children if she wishes them. But I will not, he stopped, the words failing. I know. Makeda's voice was steady. She had spent the day preparing it, practicing in her pavilion until she could speak without breaking. You are prince. I am foreigner, former slave. There is no world where we marry. I have never expected it. I have expected it. In my dreams. In the moments when I forget what I am. He rose, moved to the window, looked out at the snow melting in the courtyard. I could refuse. Accept disinheritance, exile, whatever punishment follows. Live with you as commoner. And your reforms? Your abolition? The river law you have drafted, the shadow registry you have planned, without position, without access, they become nothing. She stood, joined him at the window. I will not let you abandon this for me. I will not be another weight that drags you down. I am your strength, Yunyu. I have always been your strength. Do not make me your weakness now. He turned to her, and she saw he was weeping, the tears silent and uncontrolled, the breakdown of a man who had learned early to feel nothing because feeling was dangerous. Then what do? We continue. I remain your shadow. Publicly, we are prince and guard. Privately, she touched his face, wiped the tears with her thumb. Privately, we are what we have been. Your wife will know, or she will not. That is her burden, not ours. We do not ask for happiness. We ask for purpose. And we have it. Together. The wedding took place as commanded, a ceremony of elaborate ritual that consumed the court's attention for weeks. Makeda attended as guard, standing motionless through the hours of prayer and procession, watching Yunyu perform the role of dutiful groom with the skill of a man who had spent his life performing roles. The bride, Lady Hay, was indeed terrified, her face pale beneath the heavy makeup, her hands shaking as they exchanged cups. Makeda felt something adjacent to pity, watching her. Another woman drawn into the machinery of state, her desires irrelevant to her function. But Lady Hay proved more than she appeared. In the months that followed, as she settled into the Eastern Pavilion, Yunyu had maintained the fiction of separate residences, claiming study requirements, she observed. She watched how her husband looked at his foreign guard. She noted the hours they spent together, the training sessions that left them both flushed and disheveled, the way he said her name with an intimacy that he never applied to his wife. And she made her choice. She summoned Makeda one evening alone, in the women's quarters where men could not go. Makeda came wary, hand on her sword, expecting accusation or trap. Instead, she found Lady Hay seated before a mirror, removing her makeup with methodical precision, her face younger and more intelligent without its cosmetic mask. I know, the young woman said, without preamble. I have known since our wedding night, when he spoke your name in his sleep. I have watched, and I have decided. She turned, met Makeda's eyes. I will not be your enemy. I will not be the jealous wife who destroys what she cannot understand. I have my own desires, Shadow. I have my own loves, impossible and hidden, that have nothing to do with princes or marriage. We are all performing, are we not? All wearing masks. Makeda said nothing. The admission was too dangerous, too potentially calculated. I want an alliance, Lady Hay continued. Publicly, I am the dutiful wife, producing the heirs the kingdom requires. Privately, I live my own life, with my own companions, undisturbed. You ensure my husband's safety and happiness, which ensures my position. I ensure your concealment, which ensures your survival. We do not need to love each other. We need only not destroy each other. Why tell me this? Because he will need you more in the years to come. The war is coming, the Sui Emperor gathers his armies even now. And my husband is being sent to the front to command a border fortress because his brothers wish him far from court where his popularity cannot threaten them. Lady Hay smiled, a sad expression. I am giving you permission to go with him. To be with him, as much as discretion allows. I am giving you what I cannot have myself, the freedom to love openly, if not freely. Makeda knelt, the formal gesture of respect she had never offered this woman before. I accept your alliance. And I offer you my protection, Lady He. Whatever comes, whatever enemies you make in your own hidden life, you have the Shadow's debt. They left for the western marches 3 weeks later, Yunyu and his household, his military appointment disguised as promotion but understood by all as exile. The border fortress of Angshi was ancient, built by Goguryeu's founding kings to guard against Chinese incursion, its walls thick with the memory of centuries of siege. Yunyu would command 5,000 men, a significant force, but isolated from the capital's politics, unable to influence the succession struggles that would intensify as the king aged. Makeda rode beside him at the head of the column, no longer disguised. The Western garrisons knew her now, knew her story and her skills. The military faction had claimed her as their own, a symbol of the meritocracy they championed against aristocratic privilege. She was the former slave who had saved a prince, killed a bear with her bare hands, earned her freedom through blood and loyalty. The soldiers looked at her and saw possibility, the chance that they too might rise beyond their birth, that the kingdom valued something other than genealogy. They were wrong, of course. The kingdom valued genealogy above all. But Yunyu was building something different in the West, something that might, given time and victory, challenge the kingdom's fundamental assumptions. The river law, enacted by royal decree before they left the capital, had established that any slave who saved a free person's life earned freedom. It was limited, carefully circumscribed, but it was precedent. The Shadow Registry, officially a record of former military slaves suitable for guard duty, was becoming a network of loyalists spread through every garrison in the western provinces. And the mixed-race court that gathered at Angshi foreign merchants, escaped slaves, political outcasts, second sons without inheritance, was becoming a model of what Goguryeo might become if it chose merit over blood. 3 years passed. The Sui invasion came, as predicted, 1 million men according to the chroniclers, though Makeda suspected exaggeration. The Emperor Yongdi sought to crush Goguryeo as he had crushed so many others, to add the stubborn kingdom to his list of conquests. The main armies drove toward the capital, but significant forces besieged Angshi, seeking to secure the western approach. Yunyu commanded the defense with the skill his training had predicted, but it was Makeda who led the sorties that broke the siege, who infiltrated the Chinese camps to burn supplies, who challenged the enemy champion to single combat and defeated him with a hybrid fighting style that had become her signature: Korean sword, Ethiopian wrestling, survival instinct refined to art. The Sui army withdrew in the winter of 614, unable to sustain its supply lines, leaving 100,000 dead from battle and disease. Yunyu was recalled to the capital in triumph, his popularity now undeniable, his position transformed from exile to savior. The king embraced him publicly. His brothers smiled with teeth that did not reach their eyes. And Makeda, riding in his shadow as she had from the beginning, understood that the final confrontation was approaching. They had been careful. The court knew they were close, prince and guard, inseparable in war and peace. But they had maintained the surface of propriety, and Lady He's presence, now mother to a son and daughter, provided the fiction of normalcy. What the court suspected and what they could prove were different things, separated by the thickness of a door, the darkness of a corridor, the discretion of servants who had learned that loyalty to the shadow meant survival. But secrets have weight. They bend the air around them, create gravity that pulls suspicion into orbit. And in the winter of 615, as King Yonjiang's health failed and the succession crisis loomed, someone finally calculated the geometry of Yunyu's vulnerability and found the point where pressure would break the structure. It was the second son, Go Sungyun, who moved first. He had never forgiven the failure of his assassins on the bear hunt, never forgotten the humiliation of watching his brother return from exile with military glory that eclipsed his own. He gathered the Jairaba clan, the northern aristocrats whose daughter's marriage to the heir had not produced the alliance they expected. He found, in the archives of Wando, the original bill of sale for a slave girl named Asela, purchased for 12 silver ingots in the Samarkand market. He traced, through bribed scribes and threatened monks, the irregularities in her manumission, the backdating, the witnesses who had since died under questionable circumstances. And he presented his case to the king on a cold morning in the first month of 616, as the old man lay in his heated chamber, breathing with difficulty, his mind wandering between past and present. "Your son has been deceived," Sungyeon said, his voice rich with filial concern. "Or he is deceiver. The foreign woman he keeps, she is not freed slave, but runaway. Not loyal guard, but Scylla spy. Her manumission is forgery. Her presence at court is crime. And her relationship with your son," he paused, letting the implication settle. "It has polluted the royal bloodline. Any children she has borne, any influence she has gained, is poison." The king, dying, confused, frightened of the chaos that would follow his death, seized upon this clarity. He ordered Yu's arrest, Makeda's execution, the annulment of all decrees the prince had influenced during his years of favor. The order went out to the military commanders who had supported the Western campaign, demanding their loyalty to the heir and the second son, their repudiation of the ghost prince and his foreign witch. But Yu had prepared for this. The Shadow Registry, the network of former slaves and loyal officers spread through the garrisons, functioned exactly as designed. The arresting officers found Angshi's gates closed, its walls manned by soldiers who would not fire on their former commander. The messengers sent to western fortresses were intercepted, replaced with forgeries that called the troops to muster not against Yu, but for him. And Makeda, in the fortress's central hall, stood before the assembled officers and spoke the words she had rehearsed since the riverbank, since the bear hunt, since the first night she had chosen Yu, and he had chosen her. "I was slave," she said. "I was property. I was bought and sold and trained for violence. But I was always person. Always Makeda, daughter of warriors, child of God. Your prince saw this. Your general saw this. He did not free me. He recognized that I was already free. He did not elevate me. He recognized that I was already elevated." She drew her sword, the blade she had carried from the training yards of Wando to the walls of Angshi. "Now others come to tell you I am spy." Which threat? They come with documents forged by their own scribes, with witnesses purchased by their own gold. They ask you to choose between blood and merit, between old ways and new. I ask you to choose between fear and hope. The officers chose. They were young, most of them, men who had risen through the military examinations that Yu had championed, who had seen their foreign commander fight beside them without regard for her safety or their prejudice. They pledged their swords not to the king's fading authority, not to the princes who had never visited their garrisons, but to the man who had led them to victory and the woman who had made that victory possible. The civil war that followed lasted 8 months. It was not the bloodbath that chroniclers later claimed Yu refused to engage his brother's forces directly, preferring maneuver and negotiation to slaughter. He offered terms that would have preserved the kingdom's unity, his own disinheritance in exchange for the abolition of hereditary slavery, the establishment of merit-based advancement, the protection of the mixed-race communities that had grown in the western provinces. The heir, Go Yul, might have accepted these terms. He was not cruel, merely cautious, and he saw the kingdom's need for reform. But Sungyeon would not compromise. He had invested too much in the narrative of foreign corruption, too much in the belief that his brother's popularity was manufactured rather than earned. He convinced the Gyarabu to mobilize their private armies, to block the roads to the capital, to turn the succession crisis into armed confrontation. Makeda led the force that broke the Gyarabu blockade. She was 26 years old, scarred from a dozen battles, her hair beginning to show threads of gray. She fought now not with the desperate energy of survival, but with the controlled precision of mastery, her hybrid style fully integrated, her presence on the battlefield enough to turn uncertain troops into committed warriors. The Gyarabu champion, a giant of a man with armor of layered leather and bronze, challenged her to single combat. She accepted, and she killed him not with strength but with patience, letting his aggression exhaust itself against her guard until his openings became unavoidable. The blockade broken, the road to the capital open, Yu's forces entered the city not as conquerors, but as restorers. The king was dead by then, the succession unresolved. The heir had died of stress or perhaps poison. History would never determine which. Sungyeon held the palace, but his support had evaporated, his allies calculating survival over loyalty. They found him in the throne room, sitting on the dragon seat with a sword across his knees, surrounded by the few guards who had not deserted. He looked at Yu with hatred that had curdled into something almost like recognition, the acknowledgement of a brother who had become his mirror, his obsession, his destruction. "You cannot win," Sungyeon said. "Even if you take the throne, they will never accept her. Your foreign witch, your slave queen. The nobles will rebel. The historians will erase you. Everything you build will crumble." "I do not want the throne," Yu said. He had not drawn his sword. He stood in the center of the hall, Makeda at his right hand, his officers arrayed behind him. "I want the kingdom to survive. I want the reforms to continue. He stopped, looked at his brother with something that might have been pity. "I want you to live, to see what we build, to understand that your fear was wasted." Sungyeon laughed, the sound breaking into something like sobs. He raised his sword, not to attack, but to examine its edge. "You were always the better man. That was my grievance. Not that you were favored, but that you deserved favor. I could have borne injustice. I could not bear justice." He reversed the blade, placed its point against his stomach. "Tell our mother, when you see her in whatever waits beyond, that I tried." He died quickly, as men do who commit themselves fully to the act. Yu closed his eyes, said the prayers for the dead, and turned to face the courtiers who had gathered in the hall's shadows, watching to see which prince would emerge victorious, ready to swear loyalty to whichever survived. "I will not be king," he announced. "The crown passes to our uncle, Go Yongwon, who has governed the southern provinces with wisdom and without ambition. I will serve as regent until he arrives, and as commander of the western marches thereafter. My reforms will continue." The river law stands. The shadow registry expands. "And this woman," he took Makeda's hand, raised it so all could see. "She is Makeda of Aksum, hero of Ungshi, architect of our victory. She will sit on my council. She will command my guard. And any who question her presence will answer to me." The courtiers knelt, as courtiers do. The new reign began, not with the coronation of a fourth son who had never sought power, but with the partnership that power had tried to destroy and instead forged into something stronger than any throne. The years of regency passed in the work of transformation. Go Yongwon proved as wise as Yu had predicted, a pliable monarch who preferred poetry to governance and was content to let his nephew manage the kingdom's practical affairs. They established a rhythm, the three of them, the king in his gardens, the prince in his councils, the foreign woman who moved between military command and judicial reform with an authority that slowly, grudgingly, became accepted. Makeda was 30 when they finally married. Not in the capital, where the ceremony would have required compromises she refused to make, but in the fortress of Ungshi, where their partnership had been forged in siege and survival. The king traveled west for the occasion, his presence legitimizing what the court could not yet endorse. The monks who officiated were from the temples she had supported with secret charity, the orphans fed and clothed through decades of careful accumulation. They spoke the Buddhist vows, and she spoke in Guizi the words she remembered from her mother's faith, and Yu, who had learned to pray in the years of her teaching, joined his voice to both. Lady He attended, with her own companion of 15 years, a scholar of classical texts who had been dismissed from court for radical interpretations. They had built a life of quiet integrity in the Eastern Pavilion, raising Yu's children to understand that family was choice rather than blood. The son, Go Muyil, was 14, already showing his father's tactical mind and his own mother's diplomatic grace. The daughter, Go Xianhua, was 12, fierce and curious, her skin several shades darker than her brother's, the genetic legacy of a grandmother she would never meet, in a land she would never see. The marriage produced no children of its own. Makeda's body, scarred by arrow and claw and the accumulated damage of combat, would not sustain gestation. She mourned this briefly, privately, then turned her maternal energy toward the kingdom's dispossessed. The orphanages she established in every major city bore her true name, the Makeda houses, and they educated children without regard to origin, slave-born, war-orphaned, abandoned by parents who could not feed them. Many of their graduates entered the Shadow Registry, the network of former slaves and commoners that had become Goguryo's most reliable administrative and military instrument. Yunyu was 40 when he finally accepted the title his uncle's failing health required. King Go Yunyu, fourth of that name, ruled not from the traditional palace, but from a complex of buildings that included the Western Pavilion where Makeda had first learned freedom, the training yard where they had first partnered in combat, the garden where they had first spoken of impossible things. The court complained of provincialism, of disrespect for tradition, of the foreign queen's influence over royal architecture. They complained, and they adapted, because the kingdom was stronger than it had been in generations, its borders secure, its economy flourishing, its slave population declining through manumission, and the river law's expanding interpretations. The final confrontation with the old order came in the 12th year of Yunyu's reign, when the Jairobo clan, chastened but not destroyed by their earlier defeat, marshaled their remaining influence to challenge the Shadow Registry directly. They brought suit before the Royal Council, demanding the return of their former slaves, claiming that the river law's application to military service was unconstitutional, that the registry itself was an illegal usurpation of aristocratic privilege. They had documents, precedents, the weight of centuries. They had the support of the Confucian scholars who saw meritocracy as chaos, and the Buddhist conservatives who believed suffering was earned through karma, and the shamans who read portents in every unusual weather pattern. Makeda, 43 years old, her hair fully gray now, her sword arm still steady, but slower than it had been, chose to answer them directly. She had never spoken in full council before, preferring the private persuasion that Yunyu conducted with such skill. But this required visibility. This required the body that had been bought and freed, the name that had been hidden and revealed, the life that had been property and become power. "I was 7, she said, her voice carrying the slight hoarseness that remained from the arrow wound, when men came to my mother's village. They were not Goguryo. They were Aksumite traders, acting on contract with raiders from the desert. They killed those who resisted, chained those who survived, and marched us to the sea. I watched my mother fall on the 3rd day. I do not know if she died. I was not permitted to stop." The council chamber was silent. Even the Jairobo representatives, prepared for legal argument, found themselves arrested by the narrative's momentum. "I was sold in Samarkand for 12 silver ingots. In Wando for 40. These are facts of record. What is not recorded, what your documents cannot capture, is what happened between those transactions. I learned to fight. I learned to read intentions in the movement of eyes. I learned that survival required becoming what my owners needed, while preserving some kernel of self that they could not touch." She walked to the center of the chamber, her gait showing the slight limp she had earned in the Civil War, her hand resting on the sword that council protocol allowed her to wear. "Your ancestors established this kingdom through conquest. They enslaved those they defeated, as conquerors do. And they built a civilization of such beauty that we forget, sometimes, that its foundations are bones." She turned to face the Jairobo directly. "I do not ask you to regret your grandfather's victories. I ask you to imagine your granddaughter's possibilities. The Shadow Registry has produced your finest generals, your most honest magistrates, your most innovative merchants. The river law has freed 10,000 souls who now contribute to your prosperity rather than draining it through resentment and resistance. You fear that merit threatens your position. I tell you that merit is your only protection against the larger world that grows around us." Sui China fell to its own overreach, but Tang China rises. The Khaganate gathers strength in the north. Goguryo survives through adaptation, or it does not survive at all. She drew her sword, not in threat but demonstration, holding it before her so the light from the high windows caught its edge. This blade was forged in Wando, from iron mined in the west, by a smith who was born slave and died free. It has defended this kingdom against enemies foreign and domestic. It has executed justice and mercy in equal measure. It is yours if you insist. Take it. Take the registry. Take the laws that your grandfathers never imagined. And watch the kingdom that your grandfathers built crumble for want of the hands that sustain it. She reversed the sword, offered it hilt first to the eldest Jairable lord, a man of 70 who had opposed her at every turn. He looked at it, looked at her, and something shifted in his face, the recognition, perhaps, that the world he had fought to preserve was already gone, that the choice before him was not victory or defeat, but relevance or extinction. He did not take the sword. He knelt slowly, his aged joints protesting, and placed his forehead against the floor. "The Jairabu," he said, "acknowledge the Queen's wisdom. We withdraw our suit. We offer our sons to the registry, our daughters to the Makeda houses. We choose adaptation." The others followed, as they always did when someone broke the pattern of resistance. The council dissolved into the practical work of implementation, the boring governance that transforms rhetoric into structure. Makeda returned the sword to its scabbard, returned to her seat beside Yanyu, and felt his hand find hers beneath the table, the pressure that had conveyed everything since the riverbank. They ruled together 23 years. Not long, by the standards of some kingdoms, but longer than either had expected given the violence of their beginnings. Yanyu died first, in his 63rd year, of a fever that the physicians could not name, perhaps the same plague that had taken his mother, perhaps merely the accumulated exhaustion of a life spent in constant calculation. He died as he had lived, quietly, without drama, his last words to Makeda rather than to his heir or his ministers. "Little Lion," he whispered, the name he had given her, the name that had become truth. "We did not fail each other." "You did not fail anyone," she answered, though she knew he could no longer hear. "You built the impossible. You loved the unlovable. You were my choice, Yanyu. My only choice. My always choice." She survived him 7 years, long enough to see their son Muyil established as king, their daughter Xianhua commanding the northern garrisons with the skill her mother had taught her. Long enough to see the river law expanded into full abolition, the shadow registry transformed into a national civil service, the Makeda houses producing generations of educated citizens who never knew slavery except as history. She spent her final years in the Western Pavilion, the room where she had first learned freedom, writing her memoirs in 3 languages, Guizi for her mother's ghost, Korean for her children's inheritance, Chinese for the historians who would need to understand how a kingdom changed. The document she produced was not modest. She claimed her victories fully, acknowledged her failures honestly, and refused the false humility that would have made her acceptable to the conservative scholars who would outlive her. She was Makeda of Aksum, Queen of Goguryeo, former slave and architect of freedom. She had killed men and bears and ideas. She had loved a prince who became a king who became her partner. She had transformed a kingdom not through revolution but through persistence, the daily work of demonstrating that the impossible was merely the unattempted. She died in her sleep, 70 years old, her hand resting on the sword that had accompanied her from Wando to Angshi to the palace she had helped redesign. The funeral lasted 40 days, as befit a monarch of her stature, but the mourning lasted longer. In the Makeda houses, children learned her story as founding myth. In the military academies, officers studied her campaigns as tactical innovation. In the temples, monks debated whether her soul had achieved enlightenment through action or required further incarnation to complete its karmic journey. The kingdom she had helped transform survived another 52 years, falling eventually to the Tangsila alliance that reunited the peninsula under new management. But the institutions she built, the civil service, the abolition principle, the meritocratic military, persisted, adapted, influenced the successor states that claimed Goguryeo's legacy. Historians would argue whether she was exceptional or symptomatic, whether her rise proved the flexibility of Goguryeo's social structure or merely exploited its temporary openness. They would debate Yunyu's motivations, the nature of their partnership, the extent to which their reforms were genuinely revolutionary or merely adjustments to preserve elite power. These debates would miss the point, as academic debates often do. What mattered was the riverbank, the arrow, the choice to run toward violence rather than away from it. What mattered was the bear hunt, the fever, the names spoken in delirium and remembered in health. What mattered was two people who had every reason to accept the world as it was, and instead built something neither of them had words for, something that outlasted their bodies and their kingdom and the specific historical moment that had made them possible. In the final accounting, Makeda wrote, "Love is not feeling. Love is action. The daily choice to protect, to support, to transform. Yunyu and I were not romantic heroes. We were workers. We labored for decades to create space where others could love more easily, more safely, more openly than we could afford. If we succeeded, it was not because we were special. It was because we refused to stop." The document was sealed in the royal archives, copied in the Makeda houses, transmitted through the trade routes to China and beyond. Somewhere, perhaps, a copy reached Ethiopia, where her mother's people, if any survived, might have recognized the name, the braids, the warrior's pride. Somewhere, certainly, it reached the historians of Tang, who recorded it with the skepticism of victors writing about the vanquished, but recorded it nonetheless. The river continued. The Amnok, the Taidong, the countless streams that had witnessed her passage, they flowed on, indifferent to the names humans gave them, the boundaries they marked, the freedoms they symbolized. But humans continued too, telling stories, building institutions, choosing each other against the weight of history and the logic of power. She had been Makeda, Little Lion, daughter of warriors, slave of no one, queen of a kingdom that learned to value merit over blood, choice over birth, love over convenience. The story was improbable. The story was true. And in the telling, it became possible for others, in other kingdoms, in other times, to imagine their own improbable truths, their own impossible choices, their own rivers to cross and bears to conquer and partnerships to build against the coming dark. The scroll ends. The memory persists. The work continues.